Welcome to the Tuesday edition of One's World, which I'm actually recording on Monday, June 1st, although I'll upload it on Tuesday, June 2nd. Now, the first of the month is always interesting to me because we've had a long-standing magical or superstitious tradition in England that the first thing you do when you wake, preferably even before you open your eyes, you should say rabbits, rabbits, rabbits on the first of the month. And some people say, no, it should be rabbits, rabbits, white rabbits. One of my friends used to do that. On Portland Island, there is a superstition against saying rabbits at any other time of the year. They say bunnies because they believe that if they say rabbits, that quarries on Portland will collapse because of the borrowing of rabbits. But on the first of the month, first thing before you do anything else, even on Portland, you can say the word rabbits 3 times. Rabbits, rabbits, rabbits. And supposedly your month from then on will be just fine. And I always do it. Now, do I believe that somehow my month will go a lot better because of the rabbits? No, of course not. But I do remember one time about 4 years ago when I was in China, when I got up on the first of the month because I wanted to go to the bathroom, and it was early in the morning, but my flatmate was awake with his girlfriend and in the living room, and I passed them by and I said hello and whatnot. And then I got to bed again, and I said, "Oh no rabbits!" And of course, nothing happened during that month, nothing untoward. And I expect there is some kind of counter spell to make up for my horrible lapse. The thing is, it's not real in what you might call a scientific way, but I like doing it. Among other things, it's quirky and it's English, and even though I don't particularly like to think of myself as English, in fact I don't think of myself as English at all. My mother was English, and I have lived in England. I went to university in England, and I do actually have a UK passport, but the passport is for the United Kingdom, not for England. My father was from Scotland. I was born in Argentina, and I like to think of myself as either from Argentina or perhaps more like El Gitano, the gypsy. Like, I don't live in any particular place that is any more home than any other. I live in Cambodia right now. So all of that, it's just a nice habit that makes me feel comfortable. And you remember from last time that I spoke about magic as being something that people do to relieve their anxiety, to make them feel more comfortable. So that is definitely one aspect of magic. But I want to get a little bit deeper into it today. And I want to ask, what is the difference between magic and religion? And what is the difference between magic and religion and science as they were once proposed by anthropology, and how we think about them now? So let us begin. I think probably what most people will find more surprising than anything else is that magic and science are close allies. And in fact, in many ways, we can put them in the same category and oppose them to religion. And I'm going to be simplistic. Sorry. But this is the way I'm going to frame it. That magic and science both operate on the basis of fixed cause and effect. If you do A, B will occur. Doesn't matter what you're thinking, what you're feeling, even what God is feeling. Doesn't matter. If you do A, B happens. Put zinc in hydrochloric acid, you get zinc chloride and hydrogen. You can do it hopefully, you can do it with malicious intent, you can do it joyously, you can do it accidentally, it doesn't matter, it's gonna have the same result. And magic is the same way. There is a taboo tree in the area where you live, and you may not touch it, and you accidentally touch it. You don't mean to, you just touch it accidentally. It doesn't matter. The ill effects of touching the tree are going to happen because you touched it. That's it. Now the difference between the taboo tree and zinc in hydrochloric acid has to do with the mechanism of cause and effect. And that's what differentiates magic from science. It's not that one has some kind of different underlying deep philosophical issue. They both rely on cause and effect. The difference is that science puts limits on what can be achieved, and it wants to know the mechanism. And so again, with the example of zinc and hydrochloric acid, the zinc is displacing the hydrogen in the hydrochloric acid, and so the hydrogen gets released because the zinc attaches itself to the chloride ion. Right? So that science has the mechanism established. Magic is perhaps a little bit more like potentially empirical. I don't know. It doesn't have the most comprehensive theory behind it. Although very early anthropologists like James George Fraser suggested that there were two possibilities, two mechanisms. And one is that like makes like, so that, for example, if you want it to rain, then you can scatter water on the ground in a magical way, and the scattered water on the ground is like rain, so it can produce rain. That's called sympathetic magic. And the other mechanism was by touching. You can heal somebody if you have a magical practitioner with magical touch. And in fact, that was still being used down to the time of Queen Anne in Stuart England. It was called the King's Touch. And people with a disease called scrofula could go and petition the king or the queen to touch them. They believed that the touch would heal them. That is tactile magic, also very common in Roman Catholic tradition. Now you say Roman Catholic, that's a religion. I said, yes, but this particular practice, the practice of touching a saint's relics or touching something that the saint has touched or something like that, that's tactile magic. And that was one of the reasons that people like Martin Luther and John Calvin rejected Roman Catholicism, because they believed that it was mostly magic, that it wasn't religion. Now, what is religion then? Now, I'm, as always, being hopelessly simplistic in what I have to say about magic and religion and science, but it's a way of getting us started. The huge difference, ideologically, between what anthropologists call magic and what they call religion has to do with the existence of a supernatural intermediary, and we would call that intermediary God, or in the plural, gods, of course. That is, that in a religious system, you petition to God for something, and God has the final say. And the answer can be yes or no, as I mentioned in a previous video. That's how prayer supposedly works. Whereas in a magical system, when you do the magical operation, say the magical spell, give the magical potion, whatever it is, there's no yes and no about it. You do it correctly, and the result happens. The only reason that the result does not happen is that you did it wrong, not that some intermediary didn't grant the wish. Whereas with prayer, it is up to God to decide whether you get what you ask for or not. And in many religions and worldwide, yes and no are determined by quite a few factors, but one of them is the intention of the petitioner. If you're petitioning something with a bad heart, then you may not get it. And petitioning with a good heart, you may get it. You still may not, because there may be other variables involved. But the point is that the intermediary, the God, the supernatural being, is the one that makes the decision. And so in that respect, magic and science are really quite equivalent, because they don't have any room for intention. Doesn't matter how you put the zinc in the hydrochloric acid, it's going to produce hydrogen and zinc chloride. Case closed. You can be a good person, bad person, doesn't matter. Same with magic. So magic and science are in that sense closely allied, but they're just different in the mechanisms and the ways of determining evidence and so forth. They are obviously radically different systems in a lot of ways, but they are very similar in that they believe that the world is organized, it's orderly, and that if you understand how the organization or the order works, you can manipulate it. The difference with magic and science is just that they have different rules of evidence, perhaps drastically different ones. But there are sometimes, perhaps not very often, but there are sometimes when magic is, if nothing else, more comforting than science. Say, for example, you have terminal cancer. What does science tell you? Nothing we can do. Sorry, you're going to die. But magic may say, well, we've got something we can try. Now, from a radical a perspective of cause and effect, you might very well say, well, the magic doesn't work. But if you recall what I was saying last time, you'll remember that one of the functions of magic, not intrinsically but extrinsically, is the relief of anxiety. And if you're dying from cancer, would you rather be just told, well, it's too bad, nothing we can do? Or would you like to be told, well, we'll try this? Which would make you feel better? I guess it depends who you are, as much as anything else. But my point is not to just simply dismiss magic out of hand as being useless, even if its underpinnings have little or nothing to do with modern science. You see, the thing is that humans as a whole like to perceive order. And we are so good at it that we even can perceive order where no order exists. There was an experiment done decades ago now, when I was a graduate student. Something similar to the tests given to various animals like pigeons and rats and monkeys. Gives them puzzles, like the flashing of a light or something like that. And if they could press a bar at a particular light signal, they would get a food reward. And those kinds of experiments have been done multiple times with different animals. Well, one was set up for humans. I don't remember the exact setup, but it involved flashing lights, and I believe it involved sequences of flashing lights. And so that could be like one flash, two flashes, one, and what have you. So like 1 2 1, or 1 2 3 4 1, or 1 1 2 9. I don't know, but you get the idea. And when certain flashes happened, then there would be a reward given. And when other sequences of flashes happened, there was not a reward given. This is the great part of the experiment. It was all random. It was not in any sense orderly. But they found that the majority of people tested, given a certain amount of time, and again, I don't remember the experiment well enough, but given a certain amount of time, the great majority of people being tested would have devised some kind of code behind the sequence. They hypothesized that the sequence followed such and such an order, like it would be something like it's always even, odd, or if it's odd, and so on. And it was all random, but the conclusion that it was all random was just not one that the testees, I guess, the testees wanted to believe. They wanted to believe that there was order there. And that's part of the thinking behind magic, is that there's got to be some order. That's also the thinking behind science, is just that the kind of order that is acceptable to science is not the kind of order that's acceptable to magic, and vice versa. But the two do rely on that fundamental human quality, and it is fundamental, it's universal. All people, not every single person, but all cultures have a sense that the world is orderly in some way. And in all cultures there is some magical thinking. In all cultures, including the most scientific. They are all in some ways, not every person, but every culture has some degree of magical thinking. So we go back to my original question, which is why, and And my original answer, which I gave last time, is still, I think, legitimate. That is, people like to feel comfortable, and they feel comfortable and secure in a world that is orderly. I mean, the trouble with science, unfortunately, the big trouble, and something that I have been thinking about a lot recently, is that, let's say, modern astrophysics or subatomic particle physics, and certainly the mathematics that goes along with it, is just very, very difficult to comprehend. And you end up with results that just seem bizarre because the average person, including me, and I've got a fairly sophisticated scientific background. My mathematical background is not trivial either. But unless I want to spend enormous amounts of time wading through academic papers and still only understanding about 5%, the conclusions just seem like completely mysterious. So that's one of our problems, is that the science of the world today is indeed orderly and making great strides, but we don't understand it. Whereas we do understand things like broken mirrors and for me, peacock's tail feathers indoors. I don't like that. Putting shoes on a table, walking under ladders. I mean, we can understand those things. They bring order into our lives and give us a feeling of security. Like if something goes wrong, we've got something we can do. And it doesn't matter if science says, well, it's useless. As I again suggested last time, if you believe in that system, it provides you with comfort. And who would want to deny people of comfort? Well, I'll get a little deeper into enchantment or magic or both the next time. For now, please tell your friends, like and subscribe, and I'll see you on Friday.